headlight out, and as I was walking slowly behind me, a police car started trailing me. Again, I just came from a long day of studying. My brain was fried and I didn't know what was going on. I had a friend with me. The police car traveled off really close. At one point I stopped to see what was the issue. He came up to me and was like, "Hey, where are you guys going? Who are you? Show me some ID." I said, "Sir, I'm just a poor student trying to get home so I can finish my homework, go to bed, and go to class." They didn't let me off until they got all of my information and still followed me to my house.
Why?
Because I'm brown. That's why.
What did he do?
I got off lucky that day, but there were many others who didn't. And after I graduated, around this time, I came to one of these buildings to apply for a job. It wasn't a good job. It was a bad job where I'd be working the graveyard shift and asked what was the pay. $25,000 a year, sir, to work from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. I said, "That's not a livable wage." I said, "Fuck you." And on that note, I'd like to invite Daisy from the George Wiley Center to come say a few words.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you for inviting us. We're with the George Wiley Center, a nonprofit organization that focuses on anti-war, anti-poverty, and we follow the national welfare rights principles. The George Wiley Center was founded in 1981 to continue the life's work of its namesake, George Wiley. And we have stayed focused, like I mentioned, on anti-poverty, anti-racism, with emphasis on issues that impact our low-income households, the working class, and the BIPOC communities. The George Wiley Center organized for energy justice and essential services to meet the basic human needs of water, heat, internet, and electricity, and still continues to do so. Thanks to that, over 13,000 people over the last 10 years have been protected from utility termination. And we're not stopping there. We're here today to ask to support the percentage of income payment plan, which you can do so by scanning this QR code. And we're here to say, instead of funding Textron, fund programs like the percentage of income payment plan. I want us all to chant together in Spanish, if I may. The people united will never be defeated. We'll do it one time in English and then we'll do it in Spanish. The people
united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
Let's chant it in Spanish. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Let's practice one time and then we'll chant it. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Okay, let's go. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. 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 Thank you so much.
Let's do one more chant. This chant goes, Textron, Textron, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide. Textron, Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
my pleasure to give this over to you to this wonderful gentleman who showed me how to turn up the volume on this megaphone, Mr. Paul Hubbard.
Hey everybody! I'm from the Rhode Island Anti-War. Yeah, thank you. Take my Palestinian flag. So, May Day is an International Day of Workers' Rights. Yep. It was founded really in Chicago, but people in, believe it or not, Australia had a May Day a few years before the famous 1886 battle in Haymarket Square in Chicago. Woo! And ever since, and it was basically a one-off protest, but it became an international every year in 1889 when the Second International, which was the Socialist Workers International, voted to make May Day the workers' holiday. Saying that it was an international day, we have to be aware of the fact that U.S. imperialism is not only attacking us here at home, but on the international stage as well, particularly Gaza. Gaza is having a genocide waged against it. The people of Gaza have no food, no water, their hospitals have all been destroyed and bombed. Their schools, all of their infrastructure, water, the whole bit. It's an actual genocide where maybe 50,000 people who used to live in Gaza have been killed. A lot of women, a lot of children. And the only country, international solidarity, and that's what May Day is about. It's about international solidarity amongst the working class. Yeah, thank you. Is Yemen. Yemen is attempting to prevent the Zionist Israeli ships with all the weapons that the U.S. is supplying to them, is trying to prevent those ships from delivering those weapons to the Gaza so that they can do more killing, more bombing, more wasting of the what is the legitimate homeland of the Palestinians. And they have been struggling for that for 70 years. This is not obviously a new struggle. I also want to point out one thing real quick. There is quite a bit of good news, I consider it, coming out of Africa. There's a young revolutionary who's now the president of Burkina Faso, which is yeah, you got that, you're right about that. This guy, Ibrahim Traoré, he's incredible. He's rejecting neocolonialism. He's kicked out the French. He's kicked out all of the Western imperialist powers, and they're making a life for themselves in Burkina Faso with the resources that they have that were previously stolen by the West. And they like building schools and hospitals and, you know, everything. And they've become food secure. This is one of the big things that imperialism likes to do, is they like to go into foreign countries and make them food insecure. So then the countries have to go to the IMF or the World Bank for these ridiculous loans that just keep them in poverty and debt. And it's a cycle of underdevelopment. And now countries are finally standing up and saying, no, we're going to make our own development. and we're going to make our own way without the imperialism from the West. So I just want people to be aware, try to start following what's going on in Africa, because I think it's really exciting. So, just real quickly, I thought I'd do this. We have a few at the Rhode Island Anti-War Committee. We have a few points of unity, and I just wanted to know if the people here would agree with these. If you do, give us a cheer. So we oppose all U.S. and NATO military operations and interventions on foreign soil. We want an end to all U.S. aid to Israel. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian struggle for full human rights and self-determination. We want to disband NATO. We want to ban all nuclear weapons. We want to end U.S. economic sanctions against sovereign nations. We support a new multipolar world as opposed to the unipolar world that has been dominated for 60 years by the U.S. And we want to close all U.S. military bases across the world. Like 700 of them. So with that said, I want to thank you, and we'll see you soon.
My friend Wally.
My name is Wally, and I'm also with the Rhode Island Anti-War Coalition. And in addition to what Paul, my comrade Paul, said, I want to point out to you, if you're not aware of it, that the U.S. and France, okay, have staged attempted assassinations on the life of Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso. And it's not only Burkina Faso, it's the whole area of the northwest of Africa, the Sahel area. They are forming together a new, united Pan-African movement to liberate themselves from centuries of domination by the West, extraction, and exploitation. So we have to stand behind those people in Africa who are fighting for their liberation and put an end to this goddamn American imperialism.
Here. All right, we're going to continue, but please, as we continue, do not scratch or touch the steps of the Textron building. We must stay on the sidewalk because that is public land for us, even though our tax dollars probably went to build this building. Probably the workers of Rhode Island went to build this building. I was told we must stay on the sidewalk. So please, be good citizens and comply. Shall we continue then? Textron, we won't lie. We charge you in genocide. Textron, we won't lie. We charge you in genocide. We charge you in genocide. We charge you in genocide. Oh, we're not done here.
All right.
We have one more speaker here. One of the most influential people in my life is Saraf, who's been a community organizer for as long as I think I've known you, who has some very important words to say about this anniversary that we haven't mentioned yet.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah! All right, hey everybody, happy International Workers' Day. My name is Sharaf Suam. I'm here before you as a proud Rhode Islander. I'm here before you as a refugee of U.S. militarism. My personal journey from a refugee camp to finding a home here in Providence has forged within me a deep love for the people of the smallest state with the biggest heart. And a commitment to defending truth, justice, and each other. 2 weeks ago, on April 17th, it was the 50th anniversary of the Killing Fields, the Cambodian genocide. Yesterday, April 30th, was the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, the official end of the Vietnam War. Today is International Workers' Day. It is May Day, a day resonating with the echoes of global struggles for workers' rights, for dignity, and for international solidarity amongst the working class. Today, I want to connect our local battles here in Rhode Island to the larger currents of history. May Day reminds us that the fight for liberation is not confined by borders. It is a shared human endeavor. And it's within this spirit of collective resistance that I share the story of my community. A community with a profound and untold history of defending ourselves against U.S. empire, both in our homelands and right here in the Ocean State. My roots trace back to the beautiful rice fields of Battambang, Cambodia, a land cultivated by generations of farmers and laborers, my family among them. Cambodia's civil war violently uprooted us, leading to my birth in the largest refugee camp in Thailand. The 70s and 80s witnessed hundreds of thousands of refugees from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, a direct consequence of U.S. military devastation in our homelands. You all might know this period as the Vietnam War, but for us, it is burned into our memory, into our very being as the American War. I want you to understand that the recent surge of ICE terror since January 20th has cast a long shadow of fear in my community. My people are facing detentions, deportations, and the reality of being refugees yet again. I want you to understand that my people got here, how my people got here, to truly understand the injustice of Southeast Asian deportations. For a century, France colonized Southeast Asia, extracting our wealth and suppressed our self-determination. The United States intervened and poured $50 million to aid the French military in the 1950s in a bid to control the region. Yet, our spirit of resistance, our desire for freedom was unwavering. We fought fiercely for our sovereignty. The Geneva Accords of 1954 finally compelled France's complete withdrawal, allowing Cambodia and Laos to declare our independence, while Vietnam was partitioned into the north and south. The United States, blinded by its imperial ambitions, viewed our independence as a threat. In the waning years of the Cold War, the emergence of communism in the non-Western nations was perceived not as a legitimate expression of self-determination, but as a direct challenge to liberal Western democratic capitalism. Under the pretense of preventing a domino effect, the U.S. became obsessed with Vietnam, inflaming the conflict between the North and South, and aggressively establishing a military presence throughout the region, extending into Cambodia and Laos. The U.S. Air Force indiscriminately carpet-bombed Cambodia and Laos, unleashing over 2 million tons of explosives on our land. This equates to 1,500 pounds of ordnance for every single person in Laos. The relentless U.S. bombs killed an estimated 500,000 Cambodians between 1965 and 1973. And even now, 5 decades later, unexploded bombs continue to plague our land, continue to kill and maim my people. And still, the U.S. refuses to take responsibility. In 1975, the U.S. left Southeast Asia, leaving behind destabilized nations and peoples. What followed in Cambodia was the unspeakable horror of the Khmer Rouge genocide, an extermination that killed the lives of over 2.5 million people, a staggering 1 in 4 Cambodians, through starvation, through mass murder, through the inhumane conditions of forced labor camps. The result of the U.S. military destruction of our countries was a massive refugee crisis, forcing hundreds of thousands of Southeast Asians to seek safety in the very nation that made us refugees in the first place. The 60s and 70s were a crucial time in American history, defined by connected movements against the Vietnam War and for civil rights. Across this nation, millions of people took to the streets to protest the U.S. military in Southeast Asia. I was on campus last year protesting against the Zionist invasion of Lebanon, and that sent chills down my spine because it evoked the memory of the 1970 Kent State shootings, where 9 students were injured and 4 young people were killed while protesting the U.S. invasion of my homeland of Cambodia. And during that early era of social change, Black civil rights leaders who understood the interconnectedness of struggles for liberation advocated for the U.S. to accept Southeast Asian refugees, to accept me. And that was a moral call that passed the Refugee Act in 1980, the very year of my birth. And then we got here, and we came here. Despite Rhode Island being designated as a refugee resettlement area, after we first arrived in 1975, Southeast Asian refugees were neglected and overlooked. We represented the bitter taste of a lost war. We became an ugly reminder of the only war the U.S. had ever lost. The promise of work in Providence's jewelry industry in the 1980s drew many of us here to the Ocean State. Though the industry eventually faltered, our community persevered, putting down deep roots across Rhode Island. Yes. This led to the formation of vibrant communities, like the Cambodians in the West End, the Lao folks in Smith Hill, and the Hmong in the South Side. Communities often relegated to under-resourced and over-policed hyper-ghettos. It was here, in the crucible of urban poverty and racial injustice, that we learned to survive the brutal realities of racial capitalism, where we forged powerful bonds of working-class solidarity with our Black and brown neighbors, recognizing our shared struggles. The first few decades of Southeast Asian refugee resettlement in Rhode Island were marked by immense hardship. Yet, I want you to know that our community was far from passive, and our response to these challenges underscores our resilience and our determination to survive and to thrive. Confronted with racist violence in the streets, institutional racism within our schools, and profound neglect from deeply traumatized parents, the first generation of Southeast Asian young people bravely formed our own chosen families for protection in a country that hates us. These street-based networks became vital community formations, shielding each other, shielding us from the harsh realities of a racial capitalist society by providing mutual aid, such as housing, peer support, and even funds for funerals, things that the state was supposed to do for us. But then they labeled us as gangs. And then they had reason to target us by both law enforcement and immigration authorities. This resulted in the criminalization of an entire generation of Southeast Asian refugee youth who were subjected to constant surveillance and suspicion at every level, from law enforcement officers and school staff to elected officials and the broader public. Shame. The creation of the Providence Police Department's secret gang database and the creation of the gang unit in the 90s to profile youth created the school to prison to deportation pipeline, where Southeast Asian young people were pushed out of schools, herded into prisons, and funneled into detention centers. This pipeline served to fuel the war on terror in the 80s, justify the exponential growth of prisons in the 90s, and resource the rise of neoliberal policies in the 2000s, at the expense of our young people, our families, and our futures. The ongoing deportation of Southeast Asian refugees represents the ultimate failure of the U.S. refugee resettlement. We arrived in Rhode Island as traumatized children, seeking safety and a chance to rebuild. Our lives destroyed by U.S. imperialism. We've built lives here, nurtured families, and contributed to our communities, and became integral and beloved parts of the Ocean State. While the government labeled them as criminals, we know them, we see them, and we love them as our neighbors, our family, our friends, our comrades. And now, they are being ripped away from our homes once more, re-traumatizing entire communities and exposing the hypocrisy of this nation. I want you to know that this year marks the 50th anniversary of the American War in Southeast Asia. 2025 also marks 50 years of Southeast Asian resettlement here in Rhode Island. The deep scars of wars and genocide, the enduring legacies of U.S. militarism continue to haunt us. But yet, our spirit of resistance, our resilience has remained unbroken, fueling our efforts to rebuild our lives, our communities, and our very souls, even in countries like the U.S. that are hostile to refugees like us. Never forget, we are here because the U.S. was there. Our struggle against oppression is not a recent phenomenon. We fought against U.S. imperialism long before we ever set foot in Rhode Island. Our commitment to defending our people from the brutal hand of ICE extends back even before the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security in 2002. We are not passive bystanders, we are active agents in our own liberation. And we will continue to rally, we will continue to protest, we will continue to organize, we will continue to fight, regardless of who occupies the White House or who sits in the halls of power. This May Day, we draw strength from the long history of working people standing up for our rights, and we carry that spirit into our fight for immigrant justice. As Southeast Asians watch the unfolding horrors in Palestine, the echoes of our own history are undeniable, triggering deep, deep trauma. We recognize the familiar patterns of U.S. imperial violence and the dehumanization of entire populations. Our conscience and the spirits of our ancestors demand that we do not look away, that we not remain silent. So we stand resolutely in solidarity with Palestine and all communities ravaged by the insatiable appetite of U.S. empire. The very same weapons of destruction, the bombs, the tanks, the guns, being used to commit genocide against Palestinians are manufactured by the same U.S. war machine that devastated Cambodia, Guatemala, the Philippines, Somalia, Libya, Sudan, and countless other nations across the global south. Here in Providence, right here in front of this building, the Textile Corporation profits from the machinery of war. Their factories churning out the very weapons systems that have brought devastation to communities like mine across the globe. Our shared experience of loss and resistance compels us to strengthen the bonds of solidarity for collective liberation, to actively build and practice that solidarity in our daily lives, and to wield as a powerful tool in the fight for a free Palestine and a just world. This May Day, let our solidarity extend across oceans and across borders, uniting us in our common humanity and our shared struggle for liberation. I'm almost done, I promise. I want you to know, deep in your hearts, that the Southeast Asian community offers our unwavering solidarity in these increasingly dark and challenging days ahead. And we ask for yours in return. We urgently need you to join us in the streets, in our organizing meetings, and our collective efforts to free our loved ones from ICE, to keep our families and communities together, and to forge a truly united front against the rising tide of fascism. Here in Providence, the immigrants and refugees, the marginalized and the vulnerable are prime targets. We are being kidnapped and thrown into the wide detention facility in Central Falls. Stand with us, shoulder to shoulder, for we possess the historical understanding and the resolve to fight back against the forces of U.S. imperialism. And we understand, through generations of struggle, that true and lasting victory requires united struggle. Our struggle for the past 15 years has depended on building deep connections, on cultivating and deepening our relationships, on forging a solidarity with defending one another is not just a political duty, but a deeply felt and profoundly personal act of justice. To endure, to truly win, we must cultivate a love and trust among us that transcends the reach of the state, an unbreakable bond strong enough to withstand the forces of fascism and powerful enough to build a new world together. Thank you all.
We have one more to come to the room. I've not met this mania, but I've told very good things. I would like to introduce you, the judge, Mr. Judge Stevens.
I'll be brief. I know it's getting a little chilly out here. That shouldn't dampen anybody's spirits. It's not a complex issue that we face. If it looks like a fascist and it walks like a fascist and it quacks like a fascist, it's a fascist. And the central part of fascism is the unholy alliance between business interests and the government. And that's what we have in Textron. There'd be no genocide without the weapon manufacturers that get 25% of their business from the U.S. government. It's as simple as that. The other key thing of fascism is an attack on the legal system. And now I know there's people standing here who I'm sure have had some unpleasant experiences with the legal system, as have we all. And yet, with all its faults, it's what stands between us and anarchy and chaos. And I don't mean anarchy and philosophical anarchy, I mean bad things happening with the Proud Boys and people like that. The point is, we must rally together to defeat it. And we can look at what's going on now. Trump and this administration, aided and abetted by our congresspeople, are shredding the Constitution. The First Amendment, where people can speak. You speak against the genocide, you're arrested, you're deported, or you're beaten on your college campus. The Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. Take the people off the streets without a warrant, throw them in the back of a car, and then ship them down to Louisiana or some other dungeon, or worse, in El Salvador. The Fifth Amendment, due process. Let me just speak very briefly, and I'll wrap this up on due process. If you are licensed here in Rhode Island with a car, or you have a barber's license or an electrician license, they can't take that away without a hearing. That's what due process is all about. Giving you notice, giving you an opportunity to prepare, in some cases to have a lawyer or a representative help you, and then you get a chance to show your evidence. But that is not what's happening with these poor people that are being deported and are arrested willy-nilly and thrown into the back of police cruisers, these ICE maniacs, and taken off to jail. Now, I've mentioned a few of the amendments that these people are violating on a daily basis. But what has not been mentioned by the media, what has not been mentioned by any of the talking heads on TV, is the Convention Against Torture, which we signed, the United States ratified in 1994. When a treaty is ratified, as this was, that means it's part of the law of the land, as much as the tax code or antitrust laws or anything else. It's the law of the United States. It says that no torture can take place within the confines of the United States. And the treaty provides there's no exceptions to this. Even war or threat of war or domestic turbulence cannot lead to a suspension of the prohibition against torture. Moreover, you cannot deport someone to a country where you know they will face torture. This is the situation with Abrigo Garcia in El Salvador. And it's not just he that we should be concerned about, it's all 280 of those people. None of them had a hearing of any sort that's meaningful at all. So I urge solidarity, which is I know what May Day is all about. I urge people to stick together, and whether you're Cambodian or not, we have to help the Cambodians. Whether you're gay or trans or not, we must help these people in their fight against genocide and persecution. So with that, how do we say? Solidarity forever? Yeah. Thank you very much.
I believe that is the last of our speakers right here. So again, let's spark up that chant. Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Textron, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
Here you go. Do you want one of these?
Yeah, I was gonna get one.
Here you go.
Family, all.
Oh, okay. Well, I just saw you making grass.
Grab her one.
What's that? Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
I'm from the IWW. I'm also here with the Providence General Assembly, the PGA. Woo! This Sunday, we are having our own little May Day event. We love this one. We love it so much. We're holding another. It is going to be in Dundigian Park. It is going to be on Sunday, May 4th at noon. We are here to build community and friendship across all workers. We're going to be protecting and defending against tyranny, fascism, and oppression. Workers, immigrants, women, BIPOC, LGBTQ, defending one another, building a united front. There's going to be food, there's going to be speakers, there's going to be music, there's going to be pinatas. We love pinatas. This has been organized by more groups than I know how to count. So I'm not going to try, because I will leave someone out and hurt their feelings. So I'm not going to do that. But it has been especially organized by the Providence General Assembly. We are meeting every other weekend, every other Saturday. We are trying to build community. We are trying to build mutual aid. We are trying to build support for the working class. And also, I'm in the IWW. We're pretty cool too. So if you want to unionize your workplace, come talk to the IWW. Thank you.
All right, last thing.
for this part. Then we're gonna have our dance party back at City Hall, much to the sadness of the police, I'm sure. One thing I wanted to say is that it was you that organized this event with Providence Workers Defense. So shout out to Providence Workers Defense.